For the first time since June 6th of 2020, Alex Perez is back in the win column, and some would say maybe the biggest victory of his career. He ends the three-fight skid by knocking out the fifth-ranked flyweight Matheus Nicolau. Come Tuesday morning, Alex Perez will find a top 5 number next to his name, and he has now re-entered title contention status. Three straight losses, 9 canceled fights against 5 different opponents, hasn't won since June of 2020. All of that stacked against Alex Perez, coming in on a month and a half notice, basically. He just fought March 2nd of 2024 against Muhammad Mokaev, had a competitive bout, albeit in that fight, before losing on the judges' scorecards, and he builds off of that comeback performance by getting a victory, the biggest of his career, a second round knockout of Matheus Nicolau, a right hand from out of nowhere, shut the lights out. Perez, welcome back to the top 5 of the flyweight division. Many people, potentially even me at one point, had written Perez off with all of the losses stacking up, with all of the canceled bouts and weight misses and issues stacking up. It just didn't look like he would ever be able to climb as high as he once was when he faced Davison Figueiredo in November of 2020 for the flyweight championship. But he has righted the wrongs, and at only 32 years old, there is still plenty of time for the former title challenger to become a two-time title challenger, and maybe, just maybe, a flyweight world champion. To be able to bounce back from a loss that literally just happened less than 2 months ago and get this win here did a lot for the state of Alex Perez and the state of this flyweight division, because let's just look at some of the puzzle pieces that have been going on since March 2nd. On that night, not only did Muhammad Mokaev remain perfect and undefeated by beating Alex Perez by decision, but Steve Erceg knocked out Matt Schnell that very same card just a couple of fights prior, and he is the one getting the flyweight world championship spot this upcoming weekend at UFC 301 in Brazil versus the champion Alexandre Pantoja. So Mokaev was passed up for the opportunity because I would like to think Steve Erceg had just a more convincing, impactful performance, and then obviously just getting a knockout over Matt Schnell. I think that launched him above Muhammad Mokaev because of how close his fight was with Perez. And now you look at less than 2 months later, Perez is back in the cage to not only right the wrongs from his most recent loss, but he knocks out a number 5 ranked Matheus Nicolau and now will quite literally launch himself above the very same man that beat him on March 2nd. Now, maybe, just maybe, come Tuesday, they'll arrange the rankings to where Mokaev is number 5 and Perez is number 6 because of those two fighting on March 2nd. But don't be surprised if Perez leapfrogs the guy that literally just beat him. With this type of performance in a division that is constantly up for grabs, it is very promising for Perez right now. So as I've already said, he gets back in the win column. He ends all of the negativity surrounding his career for the past 3.5 years. He will enter into the top 5 area. The true title contention area of any division is around top 5 and up, right? In Steve Erceg's case, you could say it's number 10 and up, as we will see again this coming weekend. But the beautiful thing about this, and this is going to be a weird way to kind of phrase this, so bear with me here. All of this that has been going on with Perez's career, starting in November of 2020 when he lost in a title shot to Davison. He loses in 2022 to Pantoja. He loses just a month and a half ago to Muhammad Mokaev. 9 canceled fights against 5 different opponents, injuries, illnesses, weight misses. All of that over these past few years has allowed the division to play out to where now Perez has fresh matchups all over the board. And regardless of which matchup you give him, he's 1 win away from getting in there to fight for a title. We have Brandon Royval, who would be a fresh matchup. We have Brandon Moreno, who would be a fresh matchup. Now, I know Moreno has recently came out and said he's going to take an extended hiatus from action, but regardless, he's ranked above Perez, would still be a fresh matchup. Number 3 ranked Amir Albazi is a fresh matchup. And number 4 ranked Kai Kara France is a fresh matchup. 4 names ranked ahead of Alex Perez here, but if he beats any 4 of those, any combination, just one win, in my opinion, will put Perez right back in the driver's seat for the next title shot. So this is a very important time for Alex Perez and for the men's flyweight division. This Grand Prix kind of is happening, if you will. March 2nd, Muhammad Mokaev stays undefeated. He's ranked number 7. Steve Erceg knocks out Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell is now getting the title fight against the champion Pantoja. Number 8 ranked Perez just knocked out number 5 Matheus Nicolau. It's all coming together here. The puzzle pieces are coming together. And really, you can kind of view it as Perez can stay away from Mokaev and fight one of those 4 names, and Mokaev can stay away from a rematch with Perez by fighting one of those 4 names as well, because those same names are the fresh matchups for not only Perez, but for Mokaev as well. So these two now are in the driver's seat, racing each other to see who can get to a title shot first, even though we literally just saw them fight last month. So what a performance from Perez. The knockout was beautiful. It was crisp. It was technical. It came out of nowhere. He slept Matheus Nicolau, and no bigger moment ever for his career. Still in his prime at 32. If he can just control the controllables, right? His weight cutting and his training, so on and so forth. If he can get together consistency like we had seen in that 2018, 19, and 20 run, post Dana White Contender Series fight, Alex Perez is right back in the thick of it. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think should be next for Alex Perez? Do you like any of those 4 names that I mentioned? And do you agree with me when I say that just by beating one of them puts him right back in for a title shot opportunity? There's going to be a lot on the line this upcoming weekend at UFC 301. We have Pantoja versus Erceg. When the title's on the line in the division and you have other pieces moving in the same type of timeline and schedule, it will make for a very good second half of 2024 for the flyweight division. So give me all your thoughts on this division, what you think is going to happen, what you think should happen in the comments below. And now we will get right into the rest of UFC Vegas 91, because there are some other good performances that I would like to give some shine to. After faltering in his UFC debut by getting submitted against Volkan Oezdemir, Bogdan Guskov has racked off 2 straight wins in 2024, 2 knockouts, and now he has a win over number 11 ranked light heavyweight Ryan Superman Spann. Guskov faced some adversity in that first round, getting taken down, having to fend off some submissions and ground and pound. He survived, made it to round 2, and had a brutal knockout against Ryan Spann. And now he will enter the top 15 come Tuesday morning. And it seems as if the UFC doesn't want to waste time with Bogdan. They literally debuted him against a former title challenger and top 15 ranked fighter, Volkan Oezdemir. And in now 3 fights, he's fought 2 ranked opponents, beaten one of them. I think it's safe to say, right, he's right in the mix of a top 10 fighter next in this division. We know that Khalil Roundtree and Jamal Hill are going to be fighting in June. Bogdan just fought in February, now April. I wouldn't be surprised if he finds his way on to a June or July card this summer against one of these other ranked fighters, such as Nikita Krylov, Johnny Walker. I mean, any of them, right? Because at the end of the day, they are all fresh matchups and they all pose different threats. And Guskov, the guy doesn't even know what a decision is. He's dangerous. He's electric to watch fight. Mix him in with any of those top 10 guys. It makes for some good fun. And if he wins, he continues to climb the ranks in a division that is top heavy for sure, but where he is now makes it easier to climb. From the men's flyweights in the main event to the women's flyweights in the featured bout, the number 13 ranked Karine Silva stayed perfect in the UFC by getting a decision victory over Ariane Lipski. This is the first time Karine Silva has gone the distance and gotten a decision victory. She's 18-4 with 17 finishes, only gone the distance twice. She was 0-1 when fights go all 3 rounds prior to this, but now she's proved that not only can she go full 15 minutes and remain constant throughout, but she can beat a top 15 surging opponent like Ariane Lipski, who was on the best stretch of her career. She submitted Ketlin Souza in June of last year, who also got a victory on this card. She submitted Marina Moreau. She has beaten Ariane Lipski. Karine Silva at 30 years old is entering her prime at a perfect time, especially when you coincide that with the women's flyweight division right now and all of the moving pieces that are going on. I like a fight with any of these ladies that are closely in front of her. It looks like she's going to probably just hopscotch one spot, maybe two at most, but in front of her is Tracy Cortez, Viviane Araujo, and Amanda Hebos filling out the 9, 10, and 11 spots in the division. Any mixture of those three, I think, makes sense. Maybe even someone like Caitlin Sermonara, who's coming off of a loss to Macy Barber. She's at the number 7 spot. I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe put Silva that far into the deep end. You know, she beat another up-and-coming surging prospect in Lipski. Now can she take out someone who's a seasoned vet that's been in there for the title and the best of the best for years now in this division? Maybe Silva will get pushed there. She's fun to watch. She finishes fights, and she's in her prime, undefeated in the UFC. She's earned a fight with any of those ladies, even if it is the number 7 ranked Sermonara. Jhonata Diniz made good on his UFC debut by knocking out Austen Lane in round number 2. We knew that fight wasn't going to last long. I'm just surprised it made it out of the first round, to be quite honest with you. The former Jacksonville Jaguar is now 0-2 in the UFC, but Jhonata Diaz is 7-0 now with 7 knockouts. David Onama and Jonathan Pearce had the crowd going nuts as their fight came to a close, as they gave us the UFC Apex version of what Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje gave us at UFC 300. The final 10 seconds, swing and bang until someone goes down. Somehow neither one of these gentlemen did. David Onama got his first ever decision victory. Prior to this, he had a 100% finish rate, but he needed this in a big way. He's now 4-2 in the UFC, and through 6 UFC fights, has yet to be in a boring fight, hasn't even sniffed a boring fight. This fight is one of those that make you exhausted by just watching the grappling transitions and the sequences that they were going through. The striking on the feet was just nonstop. Just the pacing of this fight was unbelievable. I called it when going into this card that this would be the fight of the night. And while I don't know what the official fight of the night was, pause, I'll look it up right now. There wasn't a fight of the night. There were just 4 performance bonuses instead. So, albeit I'm giving them the fight of the night, even though they didn't get the $50,000 bonus for it. Maybe they didn't because David Onama did come in and miss weight. So that was, the one Debbie Downer, if you will, of this fight was that Onama missed weight for the first time in the UFC. It was a pretty bad miss too. I think he was like 148.5, so he missed by 2.5 pounds. Hopefully he can get that back intact. I really love watching David Onama fight ever since he debuted on short notice against Mason Jones and had a banger against him. This guy is the king of showing off and showing out on UFC Fight Night cards with some of these scraps that he's been a part of. This one was no different. Jonathan Pearce was on an amazing stretch, but has now lost 2 in a row. I look for him to bounce back in a big way. He still has potential in his career. He's in those prime years, and he's always going to be in exciting fights. I love both of these guys in the featherweight division. The night belonged to David Onama. If he can tune back in for the next fight, and make that weight properly. This was a very long layoff for him in between fights, I believe like 9 or 10 months. I'm excited to see Onama back in there before the end of 2024. Right the ship on terms of the out of the octagon stuff and keep throwing bangers when he's in the octagon. And then really, I'll just quickly mention the other 5 finishes that came throughout the card. Again, great card, honestly, for the most part. There weren't really any bad fights. There weren't, necessarily stinkers. There were some that were a little bit more lackluster than others, but none that really stand out. Uros Medic got a big-time knockout over Tim Means in the first round. Victor Henry finished Rani Yahya late in the fight. It was 2.5 minutes into round 3. Then we go down to the early part of the night. Chris Padilla on short notice makes his UFC debut. A long time coming. The story was amazing. You saw the emotion and what it meant when he submitted the Dana White Contender Series debutant, James Llontop, 4 minutes and 33 seconds into the first round. Believe that was the biggest underdog of the night that got the victory. What a performance by Chris Padilla. I'm excited to have him as a part of the lightweight division in the UFC. and Ivana Petrovic got a finish over Liang. She submitted her in the third round as well. So a few different third round finishes here, some late action, but a big win for Ivana. She rights the ship after faltering against Luana Carolina in her UFC debut, and now she's in the win column. And again, this is the women's flyweight division, the division with the most promising young prospects of all three women's divisions currently in the UFC. Like seeing that victory from her. So that is it for UFC Vegas 91. A lot of flyweight action on the men's and women's side of things. And the main event, man, Alex Perez back in the win column. Give me all your thoughts on his performance, what you think is going to be next, and your thoughts on the rest of this card. What performances stood out to you? What do you think could be next for some of the winners and even some of the losers on this Apex fight card? And the action keeps churning because we go to Brazil next week. UFC 301, the flyweight championship is on the line. Alexandre Pantoja versus Steve Erceg. Co-main event, the return of Hall of Famer Jose Aldo versus Jonathan Martinez. Anthony Smith and Vitor Petrino are taking hold of one another in the light heavyweight, division. Is it a UFC 299 or UFC 300 pay-per-view card? Absolutely not. Is it the worst pay-per-view card I've ever seen? No, it is not. Listen, when you have those two back-to-back pay-per-views in March and April, you got to expect a couple of come-downs because all the big names were fighting on two back-to-back cards. So I'm okay with what we have coming up. There's going to be a plethora of Brazilian talent to showcase in Brazil. So we will get into UFC 301 later this week, and we'll keep an eye on any MMA news or fight announcements that may come out as well. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Drop a like on this recap episode if you enjoyed it. Every week you can count on me to bring you the biggest and best storylines heading into every card, recapping the most meaningful results after every card, and giving my thoughts and opinions on the aforementioned MMA news and fight announcements that goes down in the MMA space. Join the community on social media at the BAJ MMA and follow on your favorite audio listening platform. If you like one long form audio podcast episode, they come out every Friday and Monday on Spotify, Apple, and many, many more. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.